everybody. Welcome to another week of Uncomfortable. Thanks for everyone who is tuning in. And if you're tuning in for the very first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks just for sharing another week with me on this week. My heart is so grateful, so much of appreciation for everyone who just takes the time just to come and spend a little time with me each and every week. For anyone who's tuning in for the very first time, my name is Johanna, but everyone calls me Joe. And this is Uncomfortable. This is the place where we come and we talk about all the uncomfortable stuff, the stuff that people really don't like to touch bases on because of how messy it can be at times, or how it can if talking about it, people at times may feel like it may bring embarrassment, it may bring shame, or if I speak my truth of whatever it is, that people may start to look at me a little bit different. But here at Uncomfortable, look, this is where you get comfortable being uncomfortable and just talking and being real and being as authentic as possible of whatever your truth is. And why? Because people need to hear it. I have heard many testimonies. I've gotten many and much feedback from people who have just shared with me how listening, how they were able to just spark up conversations even in their household, and then from that it brought up other conversations and other conversations on top of that. So I know this is good because it is God. I am just a willing vessel and just being obedient to what God is instructing me to do. There are many of times, like I touched on the topic last week, obedience over sacrifice. There are many of times that, we just don't want to do it. We just rather take the easy way out, of doing things, or even if that's sometimes just us not talking and speaking our truth, or not bringing darkness that's inside of our life into the light, because we just don't want to do it. But in the obedience of doing it is where we will find freedom, is where we will find healing, is where we will find restoration for us to move on and move on in a healthy way. So that is what Uncomfortable is all about. This week we are going to be covering the topic of change is risky. I know it's God because I've had a conversation with one of my really good sisters, and she was talking to me about some things, and she was just like, I know it's God leading me and guiding me to do it, but I'm just scared. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you are like so much in the topic of what this week is going to be. And my advice to her was, whenever God is asking us to do a thing, it requires something of us. It requires something different, which means it requires change. And with change, it's all risky because we never did it before, so we don't know what the outcome may be, or how long the process may take, or, what's going to even happen on the process. But one thing I have really learned is in the risk-taking of it all is that you have to learn how to enjoy the process, so that way it doesn't become overwhelming, it doesn't become stressful, and just to really know that God has his righteous hand on this thing, and that he's going to lead you and he's going to guide you into all truth. And if he said it, he spoke it, and he telling you to do it, just be obedient and just let him guide you. Let him guide you from that point on. So change requires, taking risks, and taking risks is not easy. I know I've shared with many, and people have asked me because I was one of those who worked in the the corporate world, and I had a set schedule of a 9 to 6, and many people ask at times like, do you miss your job, or what does it feel like not working there anymore? And like I tell them is that it was very risky at the time. Like I had my doubts. I didn't want to do it. I was terrified to even do it, but with making the decision, I knew it was God instructing me and letting me know that, hey, Johanna, your time here is up. So just a little background on that, just to kind of make it clear for everyone. I was working this job to where, I was in by 9:45, and we would get off at 6 o'clock. And it was in March 2016 that I that I knew God placed it on my heart to say, you know what, Joe, your pass through has come to an end. And anyone who's familiar with the Lafayette, Louisiana area, or just Louisiana in itself, we can have all 4 seasons in just one day. But this particular day, the schools, you know, we had got news that the schools were going to be closed the very next day because we were going to be experiencing some heavy ice that was going to be on the roads, and us Louisianians, we just not used to all that. So for safety precaution, they did go ahead and they closed the schools. So I remember getting this email, and in the email it read, I wish I still had that email, I would pull it out, I kid you not. In the email, it read that we are aware that schools are closed tomorrow, but we have clients and customers to serve, and that we need you to be here in a timely fashion and on time to come and do your work with excellency, because we still have a business to run. I was like, wait, whoa, hold up. Hold up, sir. I understand you sending this email to everybody, but everybody may not be in my situation of what I'm in right now, okay? So whenever I read the email, the first thing that clicked up in my head, because I was a single mother of 2 kids, is that I'm going to have to find a babysitter because schools are going to be closed. But at the same time, I knew I had to be to work because I needed my job. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is most of us live with that burden on us. And I say burden because it's a fear thing that we go through. Is like, I can't afford to lose my job, because if I lose my job, then, you know, I'm not going to be able to take care of my kids. I'm not going to be able to take care of my household the way how I need to. So my life depends on that income coming in. But I remember having all these different thoughts in my head, and I was just like, what am I going to do with my kids? Now, keep in mind, you know, my kids, they were a little younger than what they are right now, of course. But being a single mother, you like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, my back is literally against the wall right now. So I remember getting home that night and telling my kids, you know, my oldest one, I say, looky here. I said, Mama have to work tomorrow because, you know, they're making it a high demand, but at the same time, I have to make sure, you know, that I'm able to take care of you and your sister. So on tomorrow, because, you know, you have the phone, Mama's going to make sure that y'all are good. We're going to make sure that y'all have y'all food together. I even had called the fire department. I was like, look here. How young is it that kids can, you know, stay at home by themselves? And the fire department was like, you know, of course, like, they can't be a toddler or anything, but it pretty much depends on the parent and, you know, the level of responsibility for the particular kid. So I instructed my daughter that I would need her to stay home, my oldest one, and look after her sister. Went down over all the rules, which they already knew. Don't open the door for no one. You know, don't be looking out the window. Don't be answering the phone for just anybody unless it's Mama. Call me if anything is needed. I remember giving that to my daughter, and my daughter looked so terrified. She was just like, Mama, like, are you really putting this on me at this time? Like, I don't want to do all this. Like, can you not just stay home with me? And I was like, but no, Mama has to go to work, because if I don't go to work, then I'm not gonna be able to, you know, have money to take care of y'all the way how I need to, or give y'all all the things it is that y'all are asking for and everything it is that you need. And just a key note, that is what we do with our kids. I'm not saying it's a right thing. I'm not saying it's a wrong thing. But what I found, even in my case, or even in the cases of others, is that we're coaching our kids to deal with situations that us parents should be dealing with. You know what I mean? Like, why should we put that burden on a 10-year-old to say, look here, I need you to stay home. I need you to take care of your sister. I need you to be on the lookout for everything. And I need you to make sure everything is in proper working order, because if anything happens, Mama can get in trouble, or if not, something can happen to you and your sister. So my daughter, she was terrified at the time, and she was just like, okay, Mama. And she did it because I asked her to do it. You know, like, our kids will literally just say okay to certain situations and positioning just because us as parents are just asking them to do it. So I say all this to say is the very next day, I wound up going to work, and my daughter, she called me like every 10 minutes, so I really wasn't able to focus on work like I needed to. It's just that the thought of what was going on there, like I'm like 20 minutes away, I really can't get to them as fast as I want to if I could. And then two, I just really can't leave work, just like that. Then the weather is bad, the weather is crazy. And in that moment, I just felt a conviction. It was a conviction of how dare you, Johanna, as a mother, put your kids in a situation like that. So because I knew that the situation had happened because of the obligations that my job was demanding of me, what my job was instructing of me to do, with the risk of losing it, it was a risk of losing it. That was the Thursday, and the Friday I went to work, and it was the same conviction that happened again. So the Monday had came, and I just, because of the conviction, I prayed about it the whole weekend. And I just was like, you know what, God, I want to be able to go pick my kids up. I want to be able to drop them off to school. I want to be able just to spend that time with them, because I'm working all day. So by the time I get off of work, I really don't have time to spend with them. My kids are missing me. Then I have to go feel, some type of emotional disaster my daughter is having right now, because I caused her to grow up a little bit faster than what she was supposed to, even in that moment. So I called into work that day. Tuesday came, I did the exact same thing. And on the Wednesday, I remember calling up my good old friend over there, and I said, hey, look, let me know when you pack up my desk, because I'm just through. So in that moment, I had big decisions to make, because it was a change that was about to happen. But because I knew that God had already made it clear to me, and because I already knew, me and my daughters at that time, we had been praying, we had been sowing seeds, we had been faithful with our tithing. One of my biggest prayers that I had with sowing seeds was, I wanted to be able to drop my kids off to school. I wanted to be able to pick them up. I wanted to be able to be, have access to them if they ever needed to go to maybe a soccer practice, because they were playing soccer at the time, or if they had band practice, or just whatever the case was. I wanted to make sure I was that available mother. So whenever I sowed my seed that year and we prayed about it, I knew it was God revealing to me and giving me the signs of, look here, Johanna, your time is up here. And I'm just like, God, like, you sure? Like, are you really sure about it? And in every which way on how I analyze it, money really wasn't the issue. It wasn't the problem, even though we needed it. But because I knew I had been faithful in my giving, and because I knew I had sowed into good ground, I knew that God was going to keep us. So when I say that change is risky, that was a big risk that I was taking even prior to a relationship situation that I went through prior to that. But it was just something it is that I felt really deep on the inside that I knew I had to do. At the time, I had read the Steve Harvey book of Jump. And let me tell you, that book was just so profound, and it just illuminated the fact of what jumping looks like, what taking the leap of faith really looks like. And in that moment, I had to take the leap of faith. And I did it. And let me tell you, because God is so good, and because God is so sovereign in everything it is that he does, and because I knew it was him that was doing it, it was a big risk, and it was a major change that happened with me and my family. And no, we didn't just go selling into the wind. Immediately, there was many sacrifices that we had to make, but it was the best decision that I could have ever made. And why is that? Because I've got to know my kids on a completely different level. Now, you may ask me, Johanna, like, how you didn't know your kids and you seen them every day? The teachers seen my kids majority of the time. Like, the teachers spent more time with my kids. The most I've ever spent really time with my kids, let me say, present time. Present means being there, being with them, being on the side of them. Time with them was only for like Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks. Summer times they would go to their dad's house, would only get them every other weekend. But teachers seen my kids more than I did, or even, like the after school care, because I was always working. So yeah, that opened up room for me to really get to know my kids, really be able to talk to my kids, really be able to, harness in on things that bother my kids, things that was just going on in their life. Now, the change was a drastic change for us, and like I said, we didn't go off into the air just selling away. There was trials and tribulations that even happened, and there was a whole bunch of sacrifices that had to happen, but it was the best decision that I could have ever made. Why? Because I knew I had planted some good seed in some good ground. I knew what it is that I was believing God for, and I knew that it was going to be risky. So when I tell you that change is risky, it is. It's not something that's just going to happen and going to unfold overnight. It's something you really have to put your hand to. It's something you really have to plow at. It's some things that you have to do that's just going to be completely uncomfortable. You could be like, look at God, why me? Like, I don't want to do this. It is too hard. It is too scary. Like, why are you calling me to do such a thing? But it's the necessary changes that has to happen in order for us to fulfill what it is that he's asking for us to do. And whenever I think about it and I go back, and again, I'm talking about my risks that I had to face and the changes I had to make, speaking from experience to hopefully inspire or motivate anyone who may be listening to this, is because making that jump, making those changes and taking those risks has positioned me to where, I'm not a single mother anymore. I'm available, I'm accessible, not just to my family, but also to my church, to where, whenever it comes to doing ministry work, I'm available to do it. My kids are in sports. I'm able to go to all of their meetings, all of their practices. I'm able to pick them up, not having to find no one to do it. I have a husband because of my sewing and because of what I believe for, a husband that not just loves me, but a husband too who serves alongside of me, along with our kids as well in our church family, in our church home at this time. So taking that risk in that moment, it was scary. It was terrifying. Let me just be honest. But because I knew that God had me, and because I knew that he had plans for me, and that what I was doing in that, appointed time, like, I remember going to work, I was just so depressed. Oh my gosh, I was so depressed. I was so stressed out. Like, I would go to, to work with an attitude. So because I knew what the word says is that he has plans to prosper us and not to harm us, I knew that that was just a pass through for me. I knew that God only had me there for a reason, for a season, and for a reason. And whenever that time and that expiration date had came, then hey, look, you're going to have to jump on to the next thing. And I'm so thankful and grateful that I was able to really harness in and align my life with God's word and what it is that the Holy Spirit was leading and guiding me into doing. It was scary. Change is risky. It's risky. Like, what had, oh my gosh. What if my bills wouldn't have been paid? What if my car would have broke down? What if all these things would have happened? And, I was a firm believer that God, you guided me to it. I know that you're going to get me through it. And one of the scriptures that really, really, really helped me in that time, and I pray that this helps you as well, was Deuteronomy 31:6. And it says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you, nor will he ever forsake you. Let me tell you, you would never leave me, nor would you ever forsake me. That was a scripture that helped with sustaining me in my risk taking, in the changes, because I just had to really, really, really believe that God, you would never leave me, nor would you ever forsake me. And I knew that you was guiding me into doing a thing, but it was only if I was going to be obedient and do it. You know what I mean? So change is risky. And it requires us taking those risks in order for change to happen. My life has changed dramatically, like for real, from going to being this girl working 80, 90 hours a week, because I used to work 2 jobs at one time, to now not having to work. You know what I mean? If being able to focus in on my business, being able to focus in on my ministry, being able to focus in, on my family, and being available for them. That was one of the scriptures that helped me. Another one that helped me was whenever I really started really getting into the word and getting in seeking godly counsel and wisdom and understanding, is that I was always told that whenever you're going through a thing, if you're not able to like really put a scripture on it, it was said, find a character in the Bible that you can relate to. So whenever they told me that, I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. So then I would read about Job and how, the enemy was out and the enemy considered him, was stripping him of everything. And, God removed that hedge of protection. And then he was stripped completely from everything, from losing his money, losing his family, to having sickness in his body. But because God knew he was faithful, God gave him double for his trouble. So I'm like, okay, God, if you'll do it for Job, I know it is that you're going to do it for me. When we read about Moses, when we read about David, when we read about the Apostle Paul, they all had to go through the risk-taking of things. They all had to go through the change of some things happening. But the scripture that made that illuminated that for me and let me know that, look here, in Hebrews 13:8, it says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Meaning that, God, if you did it for them, even if it was over thousands of years ago, I know that you're going to do the exact same thing for me. So leaving my job was only the small part of it. The big part of it was, were you going to be obedient and follow the instructions of what it is that I'm telling you to do? Now, many people at the time thought I was crazy. Like, how you gonna leave that job? Do you know how many people are trying to get onto this job? It's like, it didn't matter. Why? Because when I have to wake up every single day, and I have to go to work with, like, Lord Jesus, help me with just getting through this day. When I'm stressed out, I feel like I'm depressed. I feel like I'm in a moment, like in a position to where my life is just like suffocating me. Like, I just was not happy. So I knew, because he has plans to prosper us and not to harm us, I knew that's not God, where God designed for me to stay. And it took my kids and being convicted with what I had to take my kids through for me to make the changes. Yes, they were risky. It was risky. It was me risking everything. But because God said in his word that Jesus Christ is the same. Let me take this time to invite you to come and join us for our Sunday service at 11 o'clock or Hour of Power on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Harvest Vineyard Church. Because Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that I know that he got me regardless of. So after that, that was a done deal. It's like, look here, God, I'm just going to be obedient to whatever it is that you're telling me to do, because I know it's you and because you created that window of opportunity for me to do it. Let me just go ahead and let me just be obedient to it. So I pray that this encourages someone to know that change is risky. It is risky. No one likes to go through the change. No one wants to feel, doesn't want to feel the uncomfortable of everything. But again, this is uncomfortable. This is where we tell you that no, change is risky. If you want to see change, you got to do something different. And it may cost you some things. Now, one thing it is that we do know that, look here, you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's just complete insanity. That's no wisdom. There's no knowledge there. But if you're really, really, really serious about where you are in your life right now, and you're asking God, like, God, why it seems as if I'm not moving, why it seems as if, I seem to be here when I should be going from glory to glory, why it seems like when I put my mind on something, why it seems like the consistency can't follow, why is it that when I'm praying for a thing, why it seems like I'm not seeing anything, manifest, why it is that I'm not seeing no fruit happening, why it is that, things just don't seem right. But I have been pressing and I have been praying and I have been asking God. It says that, we have not because we ask not. I've been asking God for all these things, but then we have to really be able to sit back and ask the question, are we being obedient to what it is that he's asking us to do? And our obedience looks like something. It's not going to be anything that is cute and in a nice little gift wrap box that's just going to be presented to you and say, hey, this is what it is. Nah. Our obedience may look like, doing things it is that we don't want to do. When we say yes to God and everything it is that he has for us and all the promises it is that we want to inherit from him, it requires something of us. I had a conversation with my brother the other day, and I told him, we were talking about some ministry stuff and with leadership, and like, I mentioned to him, I said, one thing I have to constantly keep reminding myself is that where much is given, much is required. So the requirements, they look like something. They make even cost us something. Why? Because many are called, but few are chosen, and we are among the few. We are among that number. So because we are among that number, which is the smallest percent, we have to do things completely different than majority is doing. If we're of the 1%, guess what? We're the ones who are going to be the risk takers. We are the ones who are going to, have the perseverance. We are the ones who may be the light, in dark situations. Why? Because the other 99 is fine. They don't want to do it. They don't want to have no part of it. And if they did, we would have a bigger percentage. But unfortunately, we don't. And if it was easy and if it was comfortable, everybody would be doing it. But because everyone is not, the ones who are, guess what? We have to be the risk takers. And why? Because we want to see change. Change has to happen. And I do know, with making those changes and taking those risks, what really pumps me up is not just the obedience in it all, but what really drives me is the fact that knowing that I can do something right now, that can be edified in my kids' life, to where they don't have to go through the exact same thing. I know many of times we talk about generational curses. We talk about them. And we declare and decree some things over our kids' lives and over our lives, that those generation things are not going to happen. But what are we implementing? What are we doing different that maybe our mamas didn't do, or our daddies didn't do, or our grandparents didn't do? What are we doing that is different? Now, whenever we start to make change and we start to implement things that may be different, it may be risky. It may cause people to ask you, who you think you is? What you think you doing? I am so excited about the P31 Life Group that will be starting on February 23rd at 10 o'clock a.m. Please make sure to hit me up for any information. The matter of it all is that I don't want to see my kids have to go through the same things that I had to go through. So if I can make it a little bit easier, if I can make that journey for them a little bit shorter, as their parent, as their mother, as the one who is praying constantly over them, as their guardian who is wanting to protect them and provide for them, why would I not go ahead and take the risk? So that way they don't have to take those risks. They can start off a little bit better than what it is that I was able to. And I know we're constantly going through life, and I know we're constantly learning, but it all looks like something. Change does not just happen just for yourself. And if that is the case, and if you want change to happen just for you, maybe you need to do a self-check. Maybe you need to do some self-evaluation, because that is selfishness, that is pride, that is all kind of the stuff that I really don't want to get into. But change is never just for ourselves. I always tell my kids and I tell my husband that, look here, when we're faced with adversity and when we're faced with the trials and the obstacles and the oppositions of everything, know and understand that it's never about us. It may be God trying to teach us something. It may be God testing us and seeing if we really have the faith it is that, that we say we do, or it may just be that he just wants to see if we're just going to be obedient. But know and behold, it is never about us. Even in the moments, it is never about us. It may be for someone, around us. It may be for, I tell my husband, it may be something for the kids. It may be for something for our parents, but it's never about us. It may be even something for someone who we may cross paths with, but it's never about us. Keeping that in mind, it is never about us. So whenever we make change is something it is that we have to do, but for everyone it is who's connected to us, or everyone it is who comes behind us. So if I have to take those risks right now for my kids, to where they don't have to do the exact same thing, and that can just be strongholds broken off our family, if it can be chains that are, broken off, or it can just be generational curses that, we just able to destroy. At the time, we're going to go ahead and do that. Change is risky. You have to be a risk taker. You have to be a risk taker. You have to be among the few who, just floating through life and just getting by, no. We don't want to just be out here up in these streets just surviving, but we really want to be thriving in everything it is that we're doing. My pastor said it on the other night, which he shared it with us, some of the leaders in the church, many of times. He was like, why you just want to be just an average individual? Why you just want to be an average, an average leader? Why you just want to be an average Christian? No, it's not time to be mediocre no more. It's not time to be average. We have enough people who is doing that. But what's going to make you stand out? What's going to make you different? What's going to make you a game changer? What's going to make you a risk taker? And it's you really going forward with whatever desires it feel that you have in your heart, whatever it is that God is pricking at you and telling you to do. Why? Because he got you. He got you. Again, that is Deuteronomy 31:6. And then we have Hebrews 13:8. Those were two scriptures that kept me and my risk taken. And it was not easy. It was not easy. But I do remember listening to Les Brown, who said, because I used to constantly listen to motivational videos all the time, because I'm like, Lord Jesus, I need to stay motivated about what's going on here. And he said something that just, it was just so profound to my life, to where he said that if you fall down, make sure that you land on your back, because that way if you land on your back, you have the ability to look up. And when knowing that you can look up, it gives you the option to be able to get up. But the option of getting up is your option. It's completely up to you. And if you choose to get up, guess what? That is a major step. It is, because many fall, but many do not want to get up. Why? Because the getting up sometimes is hard for them. But if you get up, keep going. And if you fall again, guess what? You already know that you fell before and you got up. So guess what? You can do the same thing again. Another thing that helped me so much, and again, I pray this is blessing somebody, because change is risky. Nobody wants to change. Many don't even adjust to change very easy. But guess what? With changing comes blessings. That's what I call it. It comes blessings. Now, it may not be a blessing for you right then and there or even immediately, but it may be blessings for others. I knew at the time it is of me leaving my job, it was a blessing for my kids, and they were able to see me more, see me pick them up from school, drop them off for school. That just blessed their life. Being able to go to the park after school, get some ice cream, me really being able to help them with their homework and not be so tired or even trying to rush them through it. And let me just say, with that decision making, and because I was able to really harness in more on my kids' education, I got an honor roll student. I have another one, she a ABC, but she's in her biomath. She's aiming to be a doctor. I have one who's aiming, to be a lawyer. So as a parent, I'm able to really spend that time with them and be well rested. You know what I mean? To be able to really hear them and what it is that they're, aspiring to do, and what they're aspiring to be. And I can really speak to that in them and pulling it out and giving suggestions. Okay, baby, let's read this book. Let's spend some time here. Let's go visit here. Let's go talk to this person. Had I had a job, well, that job, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So me making those changes and taking those risks at the moment didn't just bless me, but it blessed my kids. And it also too blessed the fact that they were able to see their mom more. So this is a book here. I know I have put it before. It is called Prevail, and Discover Your Strength in Hard Places. This book is so good. Let me tell you, it is so good. But one of the things that it reads in this book, and it says, I have discovered that there is no real security in comfort or remaining complacent. There is no real benefit in staying with things or in situations that no longer hold meaning or value, or that are not making a positive impact. Let God open new doors of opportunity, or shall we say problems, that will allow you to express your purpose and broadcast the strength of your character to the world around you. True empowerment comes when you move towards a desired change or a new goal that makes a difference beyond yourself as an individual. No matter how small the action or the contribution. That blessed my life. Look at here, meaning that whenever we sit back and we really do a self-evaluation and we just do an evaluation just on our life, just in general, is this thing adding to me or is it taking away? Is it something that is bringing value to my life? Is it something it is that's pushing me farther into my purpose, or is this something I'm just being complacent with? Is this something that I'm just being content with? Is this something it is that is really driving me and really encourage me and really wanting to push me forward? Is it something that is really making a change, not in my life, but even in the lives of people around me? Or am I just here, just going through life? That's a question it is that you have to ask yourself. Now, again, change is risky, but change requires being a risk taker. And you have to take the risk. And just to know that God, He got you. He would never leave you, nor would He ever forsake you, how Deuteronomy tells us. And then in Hebrews it says that Jesus Christ is the same today, yesterday, and forevermore. Be a risk taker. Be a game changer. Now, it's going to be a little bit scary at the beginning, but you know what? It says that God did not give us a spirit of fear. So no, we're not going to fear a thing. But just to know that because we are just humans, it's okay just for us to be a little scared, but for us to do it anyways. So I pray that this bless you. I know it wasn't as uppity and, me, whatever the case may be, but this is something that really touched home for me. And it's basically something that I really had to go through. And I just wanted to share that experience with you. Why? Because most people, they don't tell you about the nitty gritty of stuff. They don't tell you about the, about the valleys. They only want to talk to you about the hills. But being a risk taker and being a game changer, you're going to have to go through some valleys, and it's not going to always be pleasant, but it's always going to be worth it. I promise you, it's always going to be worth it. And you may not see the manifestation of it right then and there, but if you just continue to press and keep with the perseverance of everything, and know that God got you, because He has plans to prosper you and not to harm you. God got you, and everything is going to work out. I pray this bless you. This is going to conclude another week of Uncomfortable. If you have not already, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And look here, I pray this bless you, and I just can't wait to see all of you, even though I can't, physically see you, but I see the ones who are watching and the ones who are liking and the ones who are sharing. So I pray this bless you. So until next week, you all be blessed and be risk takers. Be a game changer.